Gerecho Delaney was destined to create art. He is a contemporary artist, and his work speaks for itself, and his wisdom is evident.
I love doing it, and I want to do this. And that was probably from day one. When I could write, I could draw. My mom, she says, well, I want you to go to this workshop at the Memphis College of Art. I said, no. I don't want to go to the workshop because I don't want to say that, someone taught me how to draw. I don't ever want to be able to say someone taught me how to draw, or, I don't want anybody else to be able to say, well, I taught him this and I taught him that. No, it's a God-given ability that I just have to develop, And I think I had that understanding as a child, and I kind of shied away from instruction. My father introduced me to some other artists that he knew when I was younger, and they would show me the basic principles that I decided to skip when I was looking through the books. Once I was in front of them, those basic principles came right back to me, and they're like, no, let me show you. If you use them the right way, it'll make things a lot easier for you. It'll make things go a lot faster for you, and you'll have a better understanding of the mechanics of all of it. And that's shade, light, shadow, contrast, composition in regards to having balance throughout your pieces. All of that was explained to me once I started, studying with people. I won't say under, but I started studying with people.
The fact is, his art continues to evolve, and there is no one category to confine it.
I don't think it fits in a category. I remember in grad school, my professor told me that I was experimenting too much. And I don't think there's ever a point in art I will stop experimenting. It is, as well as expression, it's experimentation. Because I've got this idea, this concept, this feeling, this experience that I want to portray. Now, I'm trying to portray it visually. Most often it's not me talking to you, telling you, this is what I went through. And even if it is me talking to you and telling you this is what I went through, how do I make you feel what I felt? How do I express that? How do I portray that? So sometimes it comes out as a painting and it's more abstract and realistic. Sometimes it comes out as woodwork, and the woodwork is quite often more abstract than realistic. Now my paintings would be more figurative, and that's when I deal with people, It's always dealing with the concept, but with the wood pieces, I don't necessarily deal with people as much as I do with my paintings. Sometimes oil. It really depends on the subject, and it depends on how I want it to come out, what look I'm going for.
From mixed media, oil, photography, to his works on wood, you'll find Gerecho true to his goal, to encourage people to embrace an individual way of thinking when it comes to art. Along with his natural artistic talent, Gerecho was influenced by Henry O. Tanner, who painted the banjo lesson in 1893.
Henry Ossawa Tanner was an oil painter. I really, really, really admire his ability to render an image in great detail without it being extremely detailed, Just brushwork, just leaving the strokes on the canvas, not painting to the point where you wipe away the strokes and everything looks, this extra smooth stroke. Leave the marks in there so that you can see how they were applied, so that you can see where they were applied. And in a lot of instances, that'll dictate an artist's emotion while they were painting too. If you're angry, more than likely your marks are going to appear that way. But if you're peaceful and calm, then your marks are softer. So I appreciated Tanner's work for that quality, honestly more so than anything else. Just to be able to look at it and say, wow, this is extremely detailed, but then to get up close to it and you can see how loose it is, That was actually the first oil painting I did. I did a study of the banjo lesson, and it actually took me a couple years to finish that piece. That was the first oil painting I did. My colors are arbitrary, a bit more, you know, I didn't follow his palette exactly. But given the fact that I was working from a photograph, the colors in the photograph weren't going to be as vivid or as accurate as what I would have gotten had I seen the actual painting in person.
His grandfather, Melvin Lee, was featured in the May 2010 edition of Smithsonian Magazine. The story was about the soul of Memphis.
My grandfather played bass guitar all my life, still plays bass guitar. So I know that's one reason I was attracted to the banjo lesson. Hadn't studied tenor before I decided to do that piece. And that was an assignment in undergrad. The professor told us to pick an artist, pick a painting, study it, do a study of it. And that was the image I chose. I loved the composition. Once I studied it and found out that he worked from, you know, 2 different light sources, had one on the left and one on the right, gave me a better understanding of why I like to work the way I do, you know, in a matter of balance and creating extra shadows, not necessarily just taking what's there, knowing that you can create your own. If that shadow is cast and you don't like it, cast another one. If that's not bright enough over there, add some light to it. And then I understood how he used props, where it wasn't necessarily just a banjo, you know, pieces of wood and cardboard that he put together and fashioned like a banjo as reference, so that he would have an image there, you know, to paint from in regards to perspective and shadow and light and how things are cast from whatever perspective or source he has, you know.
Gerecho skillfully uses the colors and pigments to recreate the world around him. And as he describes some of his artwork, you might consider him the art messenger.
I named it Inevitable. And I named it Inevitable because there was such a big talk about change in regards to his campaign and his winning and everything. And once it took place, you understand that change is inevitable. In any aspect, in any regard, it's going to happen. Things are going to change. Nothing is going to remain the same. So I named it Inevitable, based off the hype about, you know, change taking place with him being elected. I find it ironic that I ended up doing it in black and white because it came from a color image I found, and the universe told me to paint a picture of him. This was right around the time of election. He hadn't gotten into office yet when I was working on it, but just started surfing images of him, and I found this one profile shot that was just so strong I couldn't help but be attracted to it. So I started doing some studies of it, and I really enjoy working with wood as well as painting, so I just decided to merge both elements together and do the painting on wood. Primed the panel black, did an outline with white pencil, and went back in with white paint. So I painted kind of like negatively. I painted white on top of black to create my contrast, my shades and my shadows. I didn't mix any grays or anything on my palette. I kind of allowed the colors to, well, not the colors, but the white to blend itself in with the black and make my grays and middle tones and highlights, and the dark tones were already there because the panel was primed, you know, black. And I balanced it with the negative space on one side, as you could say negative space because there's nothing in the field, and on the other side is his image looking straight out. And it said too much to me, you know, to tell you what the piece spoke to me. It says way too much. Just looking at it enough. Just looking at it is enough to, you know, take in any emotion you choose. And that's really what I would rather you do anyway, as opposed to me tell you, you know, how it feels. I would rather you allow it to dictate to you some feeling or emotion, as opposed to me dictate it to you. His justification is a self-portrait done from a photograph that my grandmother took of me on my 5th birthday in her kitchen with a toy gun that he'd given me. So I set my easel up back in her kitchen, took the photograph, and went from what was old to what was new. So I was painting from life as well as painting from the photograph at the same time. Oil on canvas, capturing what's changed in the life of the house after all these years, as well as what's changed within me after all these years. So I got a chance to tap into my past as well as my present and my future, understanding, you know, where I've come from, my emotions, why I feel the way I feel, given my experiences with life and family. And it was just really, really, really beautiful for me to be able to work in my grandmother's house on a piece with a lot of energy about her house. Catching the reflections off the oven door, which reflect the tiles on the floor, painting the wood grain, painting the folds. Like I said, it's all oil on canvas, but just being able to recreate things that are actually tangible on the canvas, you know, and try and make them look or feel as tangible on canvas as they are in real life. So that was a lot of fun working on that piece. I never came up with a title for that piece. I always said I would call it The Birth of an Addiction. And that was my understanding looking at that painting, how everything that the pregnant mother does, everything that she does, is shared with that baby. Everything she looks at, share it with that baby. Everything that she ingests, she eats it. If she's around someone who's smoking and she's not smoking and she inhales it, you know, it's all shared with that baby. They are one, they are connected. You know, that's the baby's life source. So I call it, in my mind, The Birth of an Addiction. Well, the guy in the painting, that's LC. So each one is pretty much LC in the square. Because, you know, the cigarette behind it that he's got. Now, LC is, what is he, 71 years old. And I used to always see him in front of the corner store in the neighborhood. He'd have his walker out there and he would just sit. And he would always ask for change for a cigarette. You know, he wanted a square, he wanted a beer. And just visually, he was really interesting to me because he was there on his own. You know, people would half pay attention to him, walk past him, and he observed everything. That's his neighborhood, that's his environment. And he's comfortable there, you know. I got two names, I don't know. I call him Red Cloud, but I also call him the Guardian. That's an interesting piece. I'm glad you mentioned that. The gallery I was working out of once upon a time, I had this artist in there who was cutting some signs, I think, out of plywood. Threw all the scraps away in the dumpster. So I'm in the trash can, pulling them out, and he's laughing. You know, he's pointing, like, oh, you going through the garbage. I'm like, okay, that's fine, you laugh. And I immediately just threw them all on the floor in a pile, started kicking them around. And I could see different things just out of the pieces that had already been cut without me having to cut them anymore. I said, all right, this is a sword, this is an arm. Put those together. It's like, okay, if I got a sword and an arm, now I need a body, so make a body. Well, this looks like a leg, this will work as a leg, you know? So it became a puzzle, and I had to put the pieces together. So I was happy that it saved me from wear and tear of having to cut some wood, you know, route it out and everything. But it did force me to be creative in regards to having this already given to me. And I had to make it work, you know, and I had to make it be what I wanted it to be without altering what was already there. So it was a matter of positioning and vision. I had to see it in order to position it that way, and I had to position it that way so that I could see it. So it was push and pull, ebb and flow.